Crazy stuff, but here's the problem. Nobody provided a single shred of evidence. I've reached out to multiple WNBA players involved in these allegations, have not got a response from any of them. Are there police reports? Is there any digital footprint? Where is the evidence that these people are citing that Caitlin Clark fans are just horrific, evil bigots? The reality is, we all know the answer to that question. The evidence does not exist because if you like Caitlin Clark...
Following a contentious statement from the league, Caitlin Clark supporters are furious and are telling the WNBA about it. The WNBA will never forget this. Why are they so incensed, and what will happen to the league next? Let's find out. Since joining the WNBA, Caitlin Clark has taken the league by storm. She has become a formidable force, leading the Indiana Fever and attracting a sizable fan support. But recently, that fan base has been stretched to its breaking point. Fans are criticizing the NBA's handling of the recent playoff game against the Connecticut Sun, which has sparked controversy. What exactly happened, and why are so many people upset? The game that sparked all of this controversy was between the Connecticut Sun and Caitlin Clark's Indiana Fever. It was a fierce matchup from the beginning, and Clark was the center of attention both on and off the court. Her competitive fire and dynamic playing style make her a fan favorite, but they also mean that she is constantly watched by opponents' officials and even fans. By the time the final whistle blew, Clark's fever had already ended, but the real drama had just begun. The first incident that had everyone talking happened during the game when Clark had a heated exchange with a courtside fan. The ESPN broadcast showed that Clark pointed out the fan to referees, who then ejected the fan from their seat. It's unclear exactly what was said, but fans speculated about the altercation. Clark's poise throughout the event amazed many, but it was just the start of a much bigger story. Later in the game, when tensions between the Sun and the Fever increased on the court, Clark engaged in a number of violent moves that left her supporters in awe. They were incensed that the umpires weren't protecting her sufficiently, letting the Sun players get away with using excessively violent methods. Clark was fouled during one play in particular without a whistle being blown. Fans were quick to point out the inconsistency in the officiating, arguing that Clark had been targeted throughout the season without proper protection from the refs. After the game, Caitlin Clark's fans took to social media in droves, voicing their frustration. The hashtag #ProtectCaitlin started trending, with users calling out the WNBA for what they saw as biased officiating. Many felt that the league was turning a blind eye to the physicality Clark faced in every game. They demanded more accountability from the WNBA and its officials, urging them to protect their star player. Adding fuel to the fire was the post-game statement released by the WNBA. While the league statement was probably meant to address growing concerns about inappropriate fan behavior, it also denounced racist, insulting, and threatening remarks made towards players, teams, and anybody associated with the league. Behavior many Clark supporters felt it missed the mark utterly. To them, the league appeared to be ignoring the true problem. The way Caitlin Clark was treated on the court, other people had opinions besides Clark's admirers. Legend of the WNBA Sheryl Swoopes also contributed, but not everyone agreed with her remarks. Throughout the season, Swoopes has been critical of Clark, casting doubt on the veracity of some of her achievements and subtly mentioning league favoritism following the playoff game. Her criticism of Clark's play has only heightened tensions between Clark supporters and the WNBA establishment. The divide between the old guard of women's basketball and the new generation of fans was becoming more apparent. Many Clark supporters saw Swoopes' comments as another example of the WNBA not fully embracing its new star. To them, it felt like Clark was being unfairly targeted both on the court and in the media. The growing rift was hard to ignore, and it was clear that the WNBA needed to do more to address its fans' concerns. But the story doesn't end there. Another layer of complexity was added when one of Clark's own teammates, Nalissa Smith, took to social media after the game. Smith, who is in a romantic relationship with Connecticut Sun player Jones Carrington, made headlines when she tweeted about the alleged death threats Carrington had received following the game. According to Smith, fans had followed and threatened Carrington after the Suns' victory over the Fever. This claim added yet another dimension to the controversy. While death threats and harassment should never be tolerated, given that there is no supporting evidence, many fans were dubious of Smith's claims. Smith's tweet's timing also caught people off guard because it was sent right after the WNBA issued a statement denouncing inappropriate fan behavior. Some supporters interpreted this behavior as an effort to divert attention from the true problem. The league's handling of Clark's treatment on the court earlier in the season, Carrington wasn't afraid to stir things up. She tweeted that Smith deserved to be removed from the Fever's roster, which many took as a jab at Clark. This didn't sit well with Clark supporters who saw it as yet another instance of the WNBA establishment undermining their star player. The tension between Clark's fan base and the rest of the league was growing, and it didn't seem like it would be resolved anytime soon. What made the situation even more complicated was the personal connection between Smith and Carrington. Many Clark fans felt that Smith's relationship with Carrington was clouding her judgment, leading her to prioritize her personal life over her loyalty to the team. Smith's social media posts, in which she seemed to side with Carrington over her own teammates, only fueled these suspicions. Fans were quick to call out what they saw as unprofessional behavior, questioning Smith's commitment to the Fever and her role on the team. As this controversy continued, the WNBA found itself in a difficult position. On one hand, the league needed to address the growing concerns about fan behavior, especially in light of the accusations of racism and harassment. On the other hand, it couldn't ignore the frustration of Caitlin Clark's fanbase, who felt that their star player wasn't being treated fairly on the court. Balancing these competing interests was no easy task, and the league statement, while well-intentioned, did little to calm the waters. The WNBA statement, in the opinion of Caitlin Clark's supporters, was too general and did not address their main grievance, which was the officiating bias that seemed to follow Clark throughout the season. For them, this was about more than a few missed calls. It was about a pattern of treatment that they felt was keeping their star from realizing her full potential. This playoff loss was the tipping point for Clark's fans, who had seen her get thrashed game after game. The NBA's unwillingness to directly address the officiating problems was what many of these fans found most frustrating. Throughout the season, there were multiple instances where opposing players seemed to get away with excessively physical plays, or where Clark appeared to be fouled without a whistle being blown. This final game served as yet another illustration of the league's seeming inability to safeguard its greatest attraction to them. They weren't prepared to overlook the league's comments regarding fan behavior, since it appeared to be a diversion from the true problem. The hostility wasn't only coming from casual fans either. Several prominent figures in the sports world, including well-known journalists and analysts, voiced their worries about how the league was managing Caitlin Clark. It was widely acknowledged that the WNBA had a problem and that it needed to solve it quickly if it hoped to maintain the momentum it had gained with Clark's arrival. After all, Clark wasn't just any rookie. She was being hailed as the league's future and a player who could take women's basketball to new heights. However, how could she realize that potential if she wasn't given a fair shake on the court as the fallout from the playoff game continued to unfold? Among the more controversial elements of the circumstance was the role. As previously indicated, Nalissa Smith played Smith, who was romantically involved with D.G. Carrington, a vital member of the Connecticut Sun. For many of Clark's supporters, this connection further complicated the already intense competition between the Sun and the Fever. After the game, Smith publicly defended Carrington, which many fans felt was a betrayal because Smith wasn't just a regular person standing up for her partner. She was Caitlin Clark's teammate. This perception was further exacerbated when Smith tweeted that she was sending flowers to Carrington for her mental health. Even though the gesture wasn't particularly problematic, the timing was suspicious. Clark's fans were already grieving over what they perceived to be an unfair loss, and Smith's actions felt like salt in the wound. When Carrington tweeted earlier in the season that Smith needed to be removed from the Indiana Fever roster, many took it as a jab at Clark. They assumed that Carrington thought Smith wasn't getting enough opportunities because of Clark's increasing presence on the team. This comment had already caused tension between the two teams' fan bases, and it only got worse after the playoff game. Carrington's tweet and Smith's public defense of her led many Clark supporters to believe that there was more going on behind the scenes than just a simple rivalry. They started to conjecture that Carrington's feelings towards Clark were personal rather than merely competitive. For Clark supporters, this impression was reinforced by the fact that Carrington had engaged in multiple physical altercations with Clark during the season. Naturally, not everyone saw it that way, but it all pointed to a personal vendetta. Since basketball is a physically demanding sport and tempers sometimes boil, Others contended that Carrington's actions were just a part of the competitive character of professional sports. They felt that the WNBA's handling of the situation, not Carrington's actions, was the true problem during the heat of competition.